Seems like a lot more people want me to talk about Icarus. I've covered my frustrations with the game in my previous video, which I will link down below. So if you'd like to see the detailed version with more meat in it, so to speak, with me explaining my frustrations with the development of the game, then that video is made just for you. In this video, I will address the things that I personally think stand out from Icarus and why, despite its shortcomings, I still play the game, despite all the negative shit I have said prior to this video. On the other hand, let me explain something to those whom it may concern. Icarus has come a long way through improvement and has nearly flipped its core idea almost completely. Although I don't agree with some choices that were made with its DLCs, and I can talk and bitch about it 24/7, if we just back up and view this game as a whole with its overall improvement in regards to its gameplay, performance, and stability, or even its gameplay loop period, there's a lot going for it, no doubt about it. Starting out, the game was only mission based, as simple as that. The open world survival concept was completely missing. In fact, that was not even remotely close to its original idea. That's what players wanted, not necessarily developers. Big thing to know, by the way. Due to its odd concept, the game was set at mixed rating on Steam for the longest time. Now, once they start listening to the people and decided to implement that open world idea, which it should have been in the first place, to be honest, the game slowly started to gain recognition amongst other gamers. And ever since then, Icarus has increased in reviews and currently sits at mostly positive rating on Steam, which is perfect. Now, like I said, despite their poor decision making in terms of developing the game, I still think the game is very well put together, and I'm referring to performance along with its core gameplay that is available to this day, as of now, I suppose. Not what it used to be, but more so what it has become as of now. Icarus has one of my favorite progression systems of all time. Same would apply to Valheim as well, but since we're talking about Icarus, we're just gonna focus on that for today. It is nearly impossible to unlock all unlockables without putting tons of time into this game. Sure, you could tweak the settings a bit and get your game spoiled that way, but ideally, starting out with normal settings that the game provides you with, you'd have to grind for quite some time in order to see the world change around you. But it is not in any tedious way either. In fact, it's quite enjoyable to grind in Icarus and see yourself evolve in the game. There's a lot to it. Personally, what I love about Icarus, and once again, it's very recent because it used to not be the case at all, but it allows me to enjoy the game casually without having any rush or competitive side to it at all. I love survival games for their nature of being very challenging in survival, but also for their nature of allowing its players to enjoy the game at their own pace. I'm not being rushed, in other terms. Icarus used to be very competitive and solely mission based. Thankfully, due to its open world update, it is no longer the case. Quality of life is phenomenal in Icarus. Not the best, but certainly better than most. As you settle in, you are faced with some survival challenges almost immediately, but its survival is not as brutal as it would be in DayZ. Once you get yourself semi-situated, maybe build yourself a small 2x2 and gather some berries in the woods, the weather will impact your day-to-day life quite a bit. You could get some strong winds that could completely wipe your whole entire house down if it's not built properly or if it's built with cheap resources. On top of that, depending on where you build, the sun could play a major factor in your survival. For example, I was exploring one day and all of a sudden I noticed and heard fire in the background. And as I stepped out, I noticed that the forest that was behind my base was in flames, and that was caused by the heat from the sun. So my solution to that was harvesting all of the bushes that were surrounding my wooden base in order for that fire to stop spreading closer to the base. And it worked. Little details like that stood out to me in Icarus, and I do appreciate that extra quality of life in the game. Now, the game is based on different biomes, so obviously there is no major seasonal changes in the game, although that would have been pretty cool. Also, earlier I talked about its progression system. Surprisingly, there is quite a lot to unlock and discover. And just like I mentioned earlier, it doesn't feel too grindy. I think the leveling up system is actually fairly balanced. It's very similar to Valheim in that regard. Those who dislike the whole survival concept and want a little change for once, play a survival game that's a lot more than survival, I suppose. That's when Icarus comes in handy with its mission-based gameplay. At the end of the day, it is still a survival game before anything else, so don't expect expect it to be solely mission based, because despite what you prioritize more, it is still a survival game, and that system will always remain the same and unchanged. Another thing I admire about Icarus is the fact that it is a co-op game, which means unless you seek public servers and want to experience the true online multiplayer, you don't have to worry about people taking your loot or raiding everything you have accomplished, which I understand to each their own. I personally like the co-op experience a lot more simply because of stability. Playing online on private servers or even public, it can get very expensive and frustrating. So having an option to play this co-op is a huge bonus in my opinion. But once again, this only varies from person to person. I think this should basically cover majority of it. I'm gonna keep this nice and short. I know everything I just mentioned may sound very genetic to a lot of people that play this consecutively, but if you're picking this game up today and know little to nothing about Icarus, I'd say it's a great game to play in 2024, whether you have friends to play with or simply, honestly, a loner. Majority of my gameplay, I'd say 99%, I played solo, and I'd even consider this game semi-casual. If you're just getting off school or work and want to play something just to clear your mind a bit, I would highly consider picking this one up. Now, the price point, you know, fuck the DLCs. I gotta be honest with you guys. Just forget the DLCs. Pick the game for its original price. For, you know, if it's on sale, even better. Don't go out of your way and try to feel forced to spend $180 on everything included. It's total BS. Don't do it unless you really want to support developers. Then I guess you could do that. Don't look at that price and let it intimidate you for even one bit. There are some things I hate about it, but it's mainly on the development side of things, or even marketing in this case. And if you want to see that video where I just bitch and tell you my frustrations, there's a link to it. So it is a good game for the base price that you're paying. I will say that. So all that extra stuff, you can avoid it, because honestly, there is no need for you to spend $180 on the game. So I'm sorry, but there's no game in the world that should force you to pay $180, unless once again, you just want to support developers and you want to have skins and other stuff, what have you. So this was your boy Roos, and I'm out. Goodbye.